Hey ladies, welcome back. I'm so glad that you're with me today. It's a beautiful end to a beautiful weekend outside here in the dead middle of winter, the cold and dark winter. We have been so blessed with the sunshine and the 60-degree weather. I love it. I am so tired of winter. I keep telling people that I'm so over it, right? So if you're not with me and you like winter, then bear with me as I complain about winter. But there are those bright spots that God gives us in the winter season. And so I want to use that today as I continue to talk to you about my burnout in this series, as I have been sharing my story, my journey through a very difficult personal winter season. And so, as I said, I don't like winter. I'm human and I don't like the difficult, hard, dark seasons of life either. But isn't it Solomon, the writer Solomon in Ecclesiastes, who says, and you might know and be familiar with this verse, in chapter 3 of Ecclesiastes, he says, "For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven." That's every matter. And he goes on to talk about the seasons of life, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to break down, and a time to build up. Of course, a time to be born and a time to die. Over and over again, he lists all of the different struggles and the different joys of this life. And so we know in our minds that there are going to be those difficult winter dark seasons, but if we're to be honest with ourselves, and I'm being honest with you, we'd like to bypass them. So today's episode, though, is number 4. It is called Beauty in the Process Because of a Person. Now, I have to be honest with you again about, and I have 2 confessions to make. The first one being regarding the title, Beauty in the Process Because of a Person. I confess that in terms of beauty, if you will remember, I wrote in my Burnout blog, which is the beginning of all of this sharing of my story, and that was posted back in January, I believe. The title was Beauty from Ashes, Burnout and Beauty, something along that lines. I can't remember. But I talked to you about beauty, and I talked to you about how during my hard season through burnout, did come some beauty, and how God is continuing to bring beautiful things out of that. But regarding the title for today, I have to confess that I was totally 100% planning on saving the beauty talk until the very last episode. That's just how my mind thinks. Okay, so we're doing all these episodes about burnout, and the beauty comes at the end, right? So that is my confession, because I like to do that in my teaching. I like to do that in my life. I like to do that in everything. I like to wrap things up in a bow and make them pretty at the end, unless you are literally talking about Christmas and birthday presents. If you are talking about those kinds of gifts and bows, then you're going to get a Dollar Tree bow, and you're going to be lucky if your Christmas wrapping paper hasn't ripped and I haven't taped it up with a bow, because that's just me. I'm not creative. But when it comes to these teachings, learning, just the journey with Jesus, I like to wrap things up in bows, right? I like circumstances of life. I like situations. I like life's principles, the truths from God's word, all the good and the bad. I try to stick it all in a box in my mind. And I told you last time in episode 3 that burnout, hard things like depression, anxiety, all the struggles that we have, and we are all broken, and we all have broken struggles. We live in this broken world. I talked about that. And if we can't put it in a box, then it can't be wrapped up with a bow, right? A Dollar Tree bow or a fancy bow like my sister-in-law makes. She makes beautiful bows. But my point is this: waiting until the last episode of these burnout talks to talk about the beauty that comes from the process as a believer is not helpful. At least it hasn't been helpful for me, and maybe it will prove to be helpful to you to think about it in the opposite way, in that the beauty is in the process, because the process is a person. So that's our title tonight, today, just like those bright spots that we are experiencing right now, with that sun shining in my office window right here, the beautiful weekend we've had right in the dead of winter. the process because of Jesus of burnout and all of these hard things is beautiful, right? The second confession is this. I did not really want to talk to you about the two topics we're going to bring up today. In session one, of this episode, I just listed all of the different topics we were going to talk about, and every single one of them came from my Burnout blog, which is in writing on my website. And so these two topics that we're going to talk about today, again, think about the cold, dark winter and dry season like we're having in February. So when I was prepping, here's what happened. I went back and forth all over my notes, just literally trying to find something else I could talk about besides these two topics. And to be honest, there are still so many things that I want to cover with us as I continue to share my story. Again, my hope, my prayer, and what I'm seeking the Lord for through this sharing of my story is his redemption, to give him glory for what he's done and how he's redeeming my life, and also to take you along that journey in hopes that you could see the redeeming nature and power of God working in your life as well. But if you haven't guessed by now, the two topics that I'm going to mention today, and also in part 2 of this episode. So yeah, you got it right. One episode, 2 parts. It's going to take more than just the 15 minutes to cover these things, but we are going to go there. My anxiety and my depression. So here I am, Lord, send me into this conversation, because guess what, God, you have done some great things. You are still doing great things. And I am seeking you for that continuous healing, because I don't have it all together, but I'm here to share with you my parts of my story. And so part 2 will be tomorrow, hopefully. Part 1 of this episode is today. My friends, there is beauty in the process because of a person, and that is Jesus. Let me take you back to a place where I know you have never been. I know you have never been there. Literally, it was my first counseling session. Ha ha. I came with all the symptoms and experiences and issues that I have shared with you so far in my blog, in the episodes, and there are so many more things that I could share as I walked into that counseling session. I shared a couple of things in episode 2, causes of my burnout, symptoms that I was having. In episode 3, last time I talked to you about mental cycles and shame and coping mechanisms and all those things. But here I am walking through. By the way, it took me being humble even to get to that door, because I had the stereotypical idea of counseling that I didn't need it. And just eventually got to the point where, the door kept getting opened and I knew that I needed to go. My husband fully supported me. And here I was getting ready to just vomit all of the things that I wanted her to hear. The things that I've shared, but also with you, but also the things that I probably will never share publicly, but all of it wrapped up in me walking through the door. So I walk in and I meet this lovely face who would prove to be an instrument of healing from the Lord, right? He used her to bring healing in my life. But what I wanted from her as I walked in that first time was a label. Now, I know that sounds weird, but it was a label. I literally had my guesses about what that label was going to be. My first guess was codependent. I knew I was codependent, maybe something else, but that was the biggest thing on my mind. And of course, I had things in my past that I thought, oh, well, if I give her all of these pieces of the puzzle, she'll be able to slap that label on me, right? So I could get it fixed. Slap a label on me so that I know what's wrong with me and I can get it fixed, because I don't want to be this way anymore. I want the label ripped off. By the way, do it quickly, my friend, is what I'm thinking, because I am in pain, I am stuck, I am sad, I am full of frustration with myself, with my circumstances, and I need help. So, note to self, back to the title. I don't like the process of things. Now, this is something that I do feel like the Lord has given me of late, and that, I like things to be, I like to go from point A to point B without the in between, right? I have learned that about myself, and that is a great point of awareness, because honestly, it goes right along with this whole label thing. Walking into her office, wanting a label so I could get it fixed. The process. I didn't even know what the process would look like, obviously. But even with simple things like cleaning my house, I get so overwhelmed. I want it done. The process. Stop and enjoy the process, by the way. You can enjoy cleaning. Well, sometimes I like to listen to podcasts while I clean. That helps a lot. But so I have learned that about myself, and I know I'm not alone in that. Okay. I know some of you are right there along with me, but this is the deal. My counselor, however, she never gave me a label. She led me and she loved me into the love of Jesus. She guided me. She led me. She led me to a number of things, realizations, tools, awareness, just all kinds of things that she used alongside the Word of God and the Spirit of God that is dwelling within her. She is a Christian. I'm a Christian. I mean, it was just an anointed place, right? And God did mighty things, including using some of the tools that she gave me. But his power is what did it, and it was effective. And it was what is doing it. I should say that, not in past tense. Here I am. I'm still in so much. But if she had given me labels, she would have outright said, Jamie, you are depressed. Jamie, you are anxious. You have anxiety and a host of other things. But those two are the hardest for me to say, even out loud right now, anxiety and depression. Because if she had labeled me, I could have been fixed, right? Label me, fix me. That is not what happened. What she started by the Spirit of God working in her and the Word of God that we used, what started was a process. She helped me to see and understand that the process is okay, that it is okay not to be okay in the process of healing, because the truth is, I am okay all because of Jesus. I'm a believer. I'm a follower of him. I am his. And I can be okay even in my not okayness, because the process is with him. The process is him. The process is what he's doing in my life. So I am relieved. I am grateful. I can literally stop right now after saying that and breathe deeply and know that I do not have to be buried in my burnout and buried in the process, because I know with my entire being that the process itself is Christ himself. Colossians 1:16 through 17 is what I want to read you next. Colossians 1:16 through 17. The context may be a little bit different than what you typically would read this verse about, but it talks about the preeminence of Christ. I'll start with 15. Christ is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For, verse 16, for by him all things were created, in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities. All things were created through him and for him. I was created for him. These things that I am walking through, they are created. They are allowed in my life because of him. Everything, I am in him. The process is a person because it's all about him. And verse 17 says, and he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. He is holding us in our process, right? It is seeking the person in the process who is Jesus. He is the beauty in my winter season. And that's the reality of it. I'm going to get into this more in part 2. But the reality is that dark winter season, the beauty comes from who he is. and not my circumstances around me. So where there are seeds of sorrow, let me tell you, seeds of sorrow abound oftentimes in our winter seasons. Seeds that are buried, that are sorrowful, that we have watered with our own tears and our own heartache, right? But he is there in that, shining the light in the darkness, bringing the light so that the seeds can come forth in springtime and harvest something. They are this is how I'm describing the process to you. The seeds of sorrow that you and I have are going to spring forth something new, and it's because of him and what he's doing, and it's beautiful. But let's face it, let's get back to depression, anxiety. Now, if this is just too fluff for you and you're like, yeah, right. I totally get it. If you're feeling like I can't even hear that right now because it's too joyful, it's too promising, it's too full of life, and I don't feel anything but life right now. All I feel is death and darkness and cold. I get it. So hang with me. I'm trusting you to hang with me till the next episode where we break this down a little bit more. But because let's face it, depression and anxiety are dark journeys we sometimes find ourselves walking through, crawling through, like literally trudging through them, right? I did, I have, and I am. There is winter. Solomon said so. And so have many of you. But there are realities that we are going to talk about in the next episode, part 2 of this, having to do with our bodies, our minds, our hearts, our soul in regards to depression and anxiety. And today we are out of time on purpose, really, because I just had to break it up into 2 episodes for this title that we're calling, what do we call it again? Beauty in the Process, because of a person. But I want to leave you with 3 quick takeaways. 3 quick takeaways I want you to think about. If you don't get to the next episode for a few days, at least you have something to take away. Number 1, look for him. Wherever you're at, look for the bright spots in the dark winter. Number 2, this might seem like it's coming out of nowhere, but it's not really, if you've been there and you know where I'm at. Number 2, God is patient with you. Let that sink in and let that wash over you today. Number 3, third takeaway, beauty. Challenge your idea of beauty in the dark winter season. So that is part 1 of Beauty in the Process, because of a person. This was episode 4 of my Let's Talk It Out Burnout series. I look forward to bringing you the second part of this title tomorrow, hopefully in episode 5. I'm praying for you. I'm thinking about you a lot. And I hope this was an encouragement and blessing to you, no matter where you are walking this winter season. See you soon.